Hi, everybody. I did something recently that I thought would be funny, and it was not. And so now I'm not really sure what to do because I feel like I'm sort of caught between Iraq and a hard place. Basically, my ex never knew her father. They might have met a couple times, but he was out of the picture pretty shortly after she was born, so she wouldn't remember that. And so that was kind of a running joke in our relationship. You know, you had a deadbeat dad who was never there for you. And it's not funny now saying it, but if you said it with if you were like, you didn't have a dad, then that was, I'm not doing it justice right now. My point is that she, had a lightness about that subject. She had a kind of a septum piercing and she was kind of too cool for school. If I ever said something like, oh, I love you, you're my best friend, then she would be like, gay? And it was okay for us to say that because we're both bisexual, so that's not. But point is, she was sort of edgy and she had an edgy sense of humor. So one night we were sort of surfing on Facebook and she typed her dad's name in. And we would sort of like, I would look up butt crack McGee and stuff, and so we were just kind of fooling around back when Facebook was still popular. And she found a profile that looked kind of like it was him, because it looked like an older version of him, because she had a couple photos, so it looked like that guy but older. And there was barely anything on the profile. It was like one picture, and then it was private, obviously, so she sent him a friend request, and she sent him a message that said, again, silly, like, oh, I'm your daughter, what's up, dad, and she wasn't really expecting anybody to respond, I think, and again, I did not know that she had this, at the time, she was still giggly and being silly with it. A couple days later, I kind of forgot about it. And then a couple days later, she all of a sudden checked her phone and she got really serious. And I said, what is it? Is everything okay? And she went into the bedroom and came out, and it looked like she had been crying. And she said, it was my dad. He answered my friend request. He messaged me back. And I said, what did he say? And she said, he sent me this really nice message where he said, I'm so sorry I was never in your life. You seem like I'm so happy because I think about you every single day, and you grew up to be such a beautiful young woman, and that's all I ever wanted for you. And I know I can never make up what I did, but I hope that at the very least I can give you some moments of joy, And she was very, very emotionally affected by this message. And I was like, wow, this is really, I was not expecting, because that was me. That message is me, if you haven't caught on already. I made the profile. She had a picture of him, and I just took it and I did a face app where I made him older, and then I put that on a different background. It's very easy to do in FaceApp. This is not sponsored. They should sponsor me, because I swear to God, I have done more work for that brand than anybody on the face of the planet. Any moron who they have running their social media, I am doing more work for them. So they should at least comp my subscription. It's not that much money. Somebody made fun of me on Twitter once, and they got like 2,000 likes because they said, oh, all he does is FaceApp, which was absolutely ridiculous. It's not that expensive. It's like $15 a month. Anyway, sorry. My point, what I was trying to say was that I made that Facebook profile, and I sent her that real long message thinking that she was going to be like, gay, like she typically did. Again, it's okay for her to say that. Happy Pride Month. But I did not expect, because this was all of a sudden completely contrary to the entire person I thought I had known for the last 3 months. So now she's showing me a side that I didn't even know was there. And she's getting really, really emotionally invested in this whole thing with her dad. And so at this point, because obviously she's crying and she's taking it very seriously, I immediately know I have to take this to my grave, because I can't all of a sudden now come out and say, hey, it's me, So I said, oh, that's really nice. And I figured what I was going to do was just not answer again, and then she would forget about it, I hope. But the craziest thing was, all of a sudden, she'd always been kind of depressed, and she considered herself asexual, whatever that means. And so that, she was really not interested in physical intimacy. And physical intimacy is very important to me, because that's an important part of a relationship for me. And so that sort of would cause some tension between us. But now it was like, all of a sudden it was like night and day. Now she was all happy, and she was like, sort of making advances physically. And I was just like, what the heck has gotten into her? And as time went on, I wasn't answering, and she started to kind of go back to, the old grind, blah, blah, blah. I'm depressed. I've got all this stuff, And so I was curious, I'm not a scientist, but I always thought that maybe that would be interesting, because I think I have sort of that inquisitive brain where I like to sort of test things out, And so I was like, well, maybe the only variable that I can think of that I know about for why she would be acting this way, acting different, is because she got that message from her dad. So I'm going to send another message and just see what happens, because I want her to be happy. If there's anything that I can do to make her happier, that's what I want to do, obviously, because I love her very, very much. I guess. I mean, we broke up and it was not. But anyway, I sent another message, and I responded basically to her thing, and I don't even remember what I said. I said some crap like, I'm so happy, maybe we can. I was not really sure what to say. This is probably a juncture. There are several junctures in this story where I really screwed up, and I think this is one, because I was just trying to make conversation. I said, maybe we can get together sometime when we can meet up. I'd love to meet you. Where do you live? And she said, I live in where we live. I don't want to dox her now, but she doesn't live in Los Angeles. That's the other thing that kind of complicates this story. And just like I suspected, she's right back to, happy version. And I don't want to get dirty, but it just was like night and day in our relationship. And so much that was missing for me was there all of a sudden now. And I was so happy, and it was just going so well. And I thought, what's the harm? I mean, like I said, at first I was like, uh-oh, but then I sort of realized her dad's probably never actually going to reach out. And I did not realize at the time what it must have meant to her to not have that in her life. So if I just kind of keep this rolling, then it will sort of, I feel like, who's getting hurt? If I'm saying nice things and I'm keeping this relationship going, who's getting hurt? It's good for everybody involved. And another sort of, because we would start getting into really deep conversations, and me as her dad, we would sort of we would talk about a bunch of things that we had never talked about. Because remember, like I said, she was sort of, she got a lot of walls up around me, and I get it. I'm just some guy, but I think we had started to we were together for a long time. So it was nice to, she would open up about things that she would not normally, all sorts of things about her childhood, about how she feels about her family, trauma, past traumas that she's had, that she's never told me any of that stuff before. And so now I had to be very careful, because I didn't want to say, oh, what about that thing that happened at the playground, and for her to be like, you never told me that. And that did happen a couple times where I think that, I would sort of say something, forgetting that I had to keep track in my head who she told. Did she tell Dan or did she tell Dad? It's funny also that our names are so close, Dan and Dad. And I really think that there was sort of a Freudian thing going on where because I sort of was, I mean, we were sort of getting into very deep real talk, hashtag real talk. So I was just being myself. I was saying things that I like and how I think about things, and we were having very, very, very nice conversations. And I had to be very careful too to not, I don't, she's not Columbo, so I don't think that she would have put together like, my dad only texts me when Dan's not in the room. There were a couple times where I got a little cocky, and I would sort of like go like this and open as her dad, and then type, send. But my trick was I would just keep my fingers moving after I hit send and type so that it wouldn't seem like it was related. Anyway, I forget where I feel like I was that was a sort of a diverted tangent, and I'm trying to get back to where I was. I think there was sort of a Freudian thing going on where she was starting to like me more, and I don't know if it was subconscious or what, but she was liking me more because I was similar to her dad in her mind. I think there was a little bit of brain chemistry, it's sort of like I was hacking into her mainframe. I hate to make it sound like it's bad, but I guess at this, like I said, I didn't really see the harm at this point. And so we broke up for completely unrelated reasons. We just weren't in the right. It hurt me. It hurt my feelings a lot. But now I see we just weren't in the right, phase of life for each other. And it's one of those things where you can think all day long, well, if we had met a little later, or if we had just, I don't know. You can debate all that stuff all day long. Should I've done this? Could I have done this? Would I have done this? Blah blah blah. But she broke up with me, and I was very, very upset, especially at the beginning. And so I still had this kind of connection to her as her dad. So I started to text her and ask her about because she told me, she said, I had a bad day. I broke up with my boyfriend. Also, I don't know how much at fault I am for this, because we got pretty close. As the dad, and I guess that's good. I guess she's trying to make up for the fact that, she never had a relationship and she's very lonely. But at the same time, I was sort of like, I wouldn't have conversations like this with my mom or my dad. I think that's just healthy boundaries, But she said, I broke up with my boyfriend today, Dan, and I asked her what happened. And she told me a completely different story. She told me a completely different story than what she told Dad. She said all this coarse shit to me about, we just, I don't know, I feel like I'm not in a good mental place to be in this relationship with. If anybody ever says that to you, it's a load of crap. I know, because I've said that to people, and it's been a load of crap. And it started to make a lot of sense, because she told me as her dad that she had been, I don't know if she cheated, but she did talk about this other person that there was, who was somebody at her work. And I had sort of had a suspicion that something was going on, but I didn't really, I don't know. You always try to tell yourself, well, that's not what happened, and you're just being crazy, or you're being paranoid, or blah blah blah. But of course this really upset me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this was really a betrayal. And so I tried to kind of make her feel, not make her feel bad, but I was sort of trying to, say like, wow, that's kind of, that's crappy to do to somebody, I didn't think I raised that kind of person. I don't know if I said that exactly, but also I had to be very careful, because there were a couple of times where, as the dad, I would say something that was a little bit too, like, I would forget that I was being dad. And so I'd say like, oh, well, I think you're so gorgeous, and, you probably look really good in that dress or whatever. And then she'd be like, huh? And I'd say, oh, sorry, try to spin it back. And I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm dad. So I think that when I will admit that after we broke up, it did start to get kind of unhealthy for me and unhealthy for her, because I was trying to kind of make her feel bad, and trying to honestly steer her back in the direction of getting back together with me, and I admit that was bad. That was bad that I did that, But when you were sort of heartbroken, I have made all sorts of crazy ass decisions when I've been heartbroken that are insane. And you don't really know, you're just kind of in a desperate place. So, I was sort of trying to steer her back towards me. And then when it seemed like that wasn't going to work, because she was like, no, I'm really happy now that we're out of the relationship. And it just always felt like I was getting punched in the gut, punch, punch, punch with everything that she would say. But I couldn't put this dad down, because I don't know. I mean, I guess it was like I have a very addictive personality. So I guess it was like an addiction to an extent. But eventually I started to realize that, okay, like I said, this is not great. I would withhold from her, so I would stop responding, because now she didn't want to get back together with me. So I thought my crazy heartbreak brain was like, well, now I can make her feel bad, And so I would like not respond as the dad for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then every time that I would like kind of, I think they call it breadcrumbing, which is when you sort of, you withhold attention from somebody in affection, and then you give it back to them a little tiny bit, enough to kind of keep them following you and trying to, like following a trail of breadcrumbs. That's sort of where it comes from. And it works really well. I mean, it's bad, but it does work. And a lot of times, obviously, nobody tries to manipulate people on purpose. Nobody thinks to themselves, I'm going to manipulate this person and I'm going to be abusive and I'm going to do all this. It just sort of happens. And then after the fact, you're like, oh. So part of this is that part is in hindsight, And I've sort of moved on, and I'm realizing that all of this stuff was problematic for all these reasons. Anyway, I would kind of withhold things from her and start to try to breadcrumbing, like I already explained. And then she didn't respond. She didn't respond to me for a long time, days, weeks, and I would sort of reach out again and say, is everything okay? And I didn't hear anything for a very, very long time. And then I heard from a friend that she had I don't know if it was intentional or not. She was kind of apparently with this kind of thing, especially if it's pill related or if it's an overdose, you don't know exactly what was going through the person's head at the time. So we don't know. We are not, there's no way to say for sure what was going through her mind. So basically what I'm trying to get at is, was it an accident or was it not? And was it related to, And I feel a little bad, because I feel like I know that's, with those types of people, it's always like, well, no matter what you did, they were going to do that eventually, but it's still, it's impossible, because I'm an empathetic guy. I'm sort of a good person. And so I know how that sounds, like, oh, I'm such a great guy, but I am. People have told me that I'm a good person and all this stuff. So, I don't know. I mean, I feel like, yeah, I can't help but wonder, was that partially my fault? I mean, was it sort of like just the breakup was probably hard, and then sort of this, because some of my behavior as the dad may have been considered abusive and manipulative. So now then, is that, I mean, and then I started to remember all sorts of things that I had done during the relationship as the boyfriend, and I was like, oh, that wasn't great either, so I can't help but wonder just how much of it is my fault, honestly. And I feel terrible. I really do. I've been trying to sort of like forget about it, but I don't know. I guess it's just one of those things where, and I try not to be, I think I'm being too hard on myself. I think it's exactly like I said before. This kind of thing was going to happen no matter what. And I was just there, So, I don't know. But I think sort of what I said as the dad was true. I said, I want to try to add positive joy to your life, positive memories. And I think that I did do that, you know, because she at least got to know her father. She got to feel like she knew her father, right? And, you know, we had a pretty good time in the relationship and all this stuff. So, you know, I mean, I think that's kind of life. You know, I mean, life throws you curveballs like that. And if you are not, you know, if you're not emotionally equipped to deal with that, then that's not everybody else's fault. I gotta be careful. I'm gonna get myself into trouble. Yeah, but anyway, I don't know. I mean, I sort of don't really know how to feel about it. I probably will not be invited to the funeral, even though I should be, because I'm, you know, but whatever. Thanks for 100 subscribers, by the way. I said that in the other video, but I did want to emphasize it again. It really means a lot to me. I'm so excited to be on YouTube now. I think that getting banned on TikTok was the best possible thing that ever could have happened to me. And it's their loss, baby, because this is only the beginning of my meteoric rise to success. This is only the beginning. And I'm very, very happy that all of you are smart enough to be here on the ground floor. Well, I'd say we're probably on the 3rd floor by now, but still, you know what I mean. We're going up. So, okay. Oh, don't forget to subscribe to my Patreon. I got to start being more, I'm trying to be more of a salesman, so I'm trying to start saying that in the videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the Patreon. Don't forget to, I have a Discord on there so we can all talk, you know. And I do respond in the Discord. Just the other day, I was telling somebody my favorite music. So I like to sort of be active in there. And any other imitation Discords, that is not the case. So, and if you're on Patreon, you get my podcast, and you get there's a behind the scenes podcast you can do where I talk about, you know, what it's like sitting, you know, there's something's happening over there. I'm not going to talk about it in this video, but I might talk about that in the behind the scenes, you know, so that's another reason. So, I've heard that it's better to say this at the beginning. I don't know, it's tough. Should I say this at the beginning and then risk everybody saying, well, I'm not watching this guy sell himself, or should I save it for the end? Anyway. Okay, bye-bye.